So this is the new Apple Watch Ultra 2, and this is the new Apple Watch Series 9, and these are Apple's latest and greatest Apple Watches that they just announced at their September 2023 keynote. So with the Ultra 2 and the Series 9, these brought improvements to the original Ultra and the Series 8 with brighter displays as well as new processors, which allow for new features such as on-device Siri, as well as a new double-tap interface feature. And these are basically Apple's most current and best smartwatches yet. So in this video, I wanted to go over the differences between these two watches to help you decide which one's going to be right for you. Now, if you already own an original Ultra or Series 8, while the new upgrades are nice and all, unless you're looking for the latest and greatest thing, which is totally cool, the new additions with this year's update probably won't make a huge difference when it comes to actually using it. This video is probably more for those of you out there who own a Series 7 or older, if you should upgrade to a Series 9, or if you should spring for the Ultra 2, or if you're someone who's just considering getting an Apple Watch for the first time, which one's going to be best for you. And yes, while the Ultra 2 is the more premium watch with a few more features, it also costs twice as much as the Series 9, so it can be a question of does twice the price mean twice the features? And spoiler, the Ultra 2 doesn't necessarily have twice the features per se. In fact, these watches share probably 95% of the same features, where both of these are arguably some of the best smartwatches that you can get. They have really amazing integration with your iPhone and the rest of the Apple ecosystem. And then in terms of sports features, they're nearly identical, where they can track tons of different kinds of sports. Plus, they both come with all the new sports features that were just rolled out with watchOS 9 and watchOS 10 for that matter, like running power, support for cycling power meters, as well as offline topo maps in conjunction with your iPhone. Now, what's interesting though is that even though both of these share 95% of the same features, that 5% difference can make an impact, and it generally comes down to durability, wearability, and convenience. Oh, and really quick before we get into the rest of the video, if you do happen to find the information in this video useful, do me a favor, just quickly hit that like button down below. It's a small thing that you can do that'll help this video and the channel out quite a bit, and I appreciate it. So when it comes to these two watches, these are both Apple Watches to the core, pun intended, where they make amazing companions to your smartphone, where they have super tight integration with an iPhone, where on the tech side of things, you can view text and then reply to a keyboard, and even with your voice. You can take calls on the watch itself using its microphone and speaker. They both have cellular versions, so you can actually do this without needing to have your phone with you. They have a bunch of iPhone apps that also have extended functionality, and the list kind of goes on and on here, but basically they're the same in that realm. And then when it comes to sports features, these are 99% the same, where these track all the same kinds of sports, and that's everything from running to cycling, lots of gym-based activities, there's outdoor recreation type sports, and they also have the same functionality with the newest sports features like their watchOS 9 running features like running power, and then their watchOS 10 features like cycling power meter support, their live activity view for cycling, as well as offline topo maps in conjunction with your phone. And then when it comes to the new updates they announced this year for both of these are similar as well. So both of these come with their new S9 SIP, where this basically is a faster overall processor and internals, which allows for new features like on-device Siri requests. There's new Siri plus health features, where you can request health data that your watch collects on demand, as well as a new double tap interface feature, where it adds an additional way of interacting with your watch. And then both of these also come with their new second gen ultra wideband chip, where if you have one of their new iPhone 15s, which share the same chip, you'll have a new precision find feature, which works very much like an AirTag, where it'll give you a proximity to your iPhone, as well as a direction in where to look in case you lose your phone. And by the way, if you have an iPhone 14 or older, don't worry, it'll still have the audible alert feature that plays on your iPhone when you're using the Find My Phone feature. So that's what these share in common, but now let's talk about some of the differences. And we first need to talk about size. So when it comes to size, the Ultra 2 has a 49mm case versus the Series 9, which comes in two different options, a 45mm version or a 41mm version. And for thickness, the Series 9 is 10.7mm thick or so, and the Ultra 2 is 14.4mm thick. And then for weight, the Ultra 2 case itself is 61.4 grams, and the Series 9 45mm case is 51.5 grams. So when it comes to size, this is all personal preference, of course, but this is where the one size option of the Ultra may be limiting for some of you out there and could be too big depending on your taste, and where with the Series 9, you have those two different options. And then weight is also a consideration here too. So while the 10 or so grams may not seem like much, it is noticeable when you're talking about something that weighs only like 50 or 60 grams. But for me, I have a 185mm circumference wrist, and both the 45mm Series 9 as well as the Ultra 2 fit me well. But real talk, if we're talking about just pure comfort, I prefer the Series 9 because it's smaller and lighter and doesn't sit as high off the wrist. But that's purely talking comfort. In terms of looks, I do tend to prefer the Ultra 2. And then when it comes to the case materials, the Ultra 2 has a titanium case versus the Series 9, which has an aluminum case. In addition, the Ultra 2's case is basically this beefed up version where it has this button guard around the digital dial and the side button, which helps prevent accidental presses. And then in addition, the digital crown on the Ultra 2 is larger and it also has a more aggressive texture to it, which basically is a little bit easier to use with gloves. For the lens materials, the Ultra 2 has a sapphire lens versus the Series 9, which has an Ion X front glass. And with sapphire versus Ion X, sapphire is basically a super hard material and it's incredibly resistant to scratches. The Ion X glass should do fine for most folks just under normal everyday conditions. It's just more that sapphire comes in handy when accidents happen, like let's say you're brushing up against a concrete wall or maybe you crash on your bike or something like that. The Ultra 2 has a flat display that goes to the edges of the bezel which surround the display, which adds some additional protection, versus the Series 9, which has glass that kind of wraps around the edge that doesn't necessarily have a metal bezel surrounding it. There is also a stainless steel option of the Series 9 though, where that comes with a sapphire lens, but that costs almost as much as an Ultra, but you don't get titanium, the longer battery life, nor the action button as well as the siren, which I'll talk about here in just one bit. For the displays, the Ultra 2 has a larger display with a resolution of 410 by 502 pixels. The Series 9 has a display of 396 by 484 pixels on the 45mm version, and then 352 by 430 pixels on the 41mm version. When it comes to the display size, the larger display can be nice because it's bigger, of course, but it's not like the Series 9 has a small display or anything like that. It's still great. It's just that the Ultra 2 is larger, but that comes at a trade-off of the overall size and weight of the watch. Both the Ultra 2 and the Series 9 did also get an upgrade this year when it comes to the displays. So the Ultra 2 has a display that can now reach a peak brightness of 3000 nits versus 2000 nits on the original Ultra. And the Series 9 also got a bump here up to 2000 nits. Real talk, the displays on the previous generation Series 8 as well as the original Ultra were already super bright. It's just that now these are brighter, and that can make a difference when you're outdoors in direct sunlight. Now, although the Ultra 2's display does get brighter, the 2000 nits on the Series 9 is still great. So unless you're like always outside a bunch with sunglasses on all the time, either of these displays will work well. And then in addition, both of these displays can now go all the way down to a lowest brightness level of 1 nit. And this basically makes a difference during nighttime hours where they'll be easier on the eyes, where seeing blue light during these hours can interrupt sleep cycles, so that can help with that. And speaking of the night, the Ultra 2 has a special red watch face mode where with certain watch faces, they'll turn a red color at night automatically using its ambient light sensor. And the goal here with the red color is just like the 1 nit brightness. The red color is supposed to be easier on the eyes and less disruptive to sleep cycles. And while we're on the topic of watch faces, both of these have tons of watch faces to choose from, but with the Ultra 2, it has some additional faces that take advantage of the larger display where they can contain more complications, or basically more information on the display at one time. There are still some great watch faces though on the Series 9 where you can still have lots of data. It's just that with the Ultra, there's more screen real estate. And then another difference is with the action button on the Ultra 2, and what this does is that it allows you to perform quick actions like starting a workout, starting a stopwatch, enabling the flashlight, or triggering a shortcut. And this does also work with some third-party apps as well where you can perform specific functions. And the action button also can be used to enable the new audible siren feature on the Ultra where it plays this tone that may be useful if you're in distress or something like that. The action button also can be used for a precision start feature using the workout app. So with Apple Watches, when it comes to workouts, work quite a bit differently than most smartwatches and sports watches where when you go to click on a workout, it just kind of has this countdown timer and then it just kind of starts. With a lot of other watches out there, when you click on a workout profile, it first goes to this kind of like holding screen where if you're doing an outdoor workout, it'll first give you a GPS indicator whether or not you've got a GPS signal. And then once you're ready, you'll actually press start. With Apple Watches, it just kind of has this countdown and there you go. But with the Ultra, it has this precision start feature that you can enable where this allows you to have that start screen. So you can kind of just hang out until you're actually ready to start your workout. And then you can press the action button to start your workout. And then in addition on this screen, it also does have a GPS indicator letting you know whether or not you have a satellite fix. You can also use the action button along with one of the other two buttons on the other side to quickly pause a workout. But the Series 9 also does have this functionality using the digital crown and the side button together. It's just that on the Ultra, it's slightly easier because you can kind of pinch to do this versus the kind of awkward two-finger side press thing on the Series 9. But one thing I should probably bring up though is that they could very well have the precision start as well as the GPS indicator feature on the Series 9. Like you can already pause and resume a workout using the crown and the side button. So that could very well work the same way there. It's just that they have that tied to the action button. And then while we're on the topic of recording outdoor activities, so both of these have built-in satellite chipsets, or GPS is a more common term, but basically you'll be able to go track your outdoor activity without having to have your phone with you, and you'll be able to collect speed, pace, distance, elevation, and all that good stuff. Where these differ though is that the Series 9 uses a single frequency chipset versus the Ultra 2, which has a dual band or dual frequency chipset. Both of these can access multiple satellite systems, but with dual frequency, it allows for 2 different frequencies with a satellite. Hope that makes sense. But basically, with this kind of technology, the aim here is to deliver better accuracy when you're in challenging environments like around really tall buildings, tall canyon walls, or heavy tree cover where satellite signals can actually bounce off those objects. So having 2 different frequencies to use allows it to get more accurate results. Now, this isn't to say that the Series 9 is inaccurate by any means. It's actually plenty accurate. Like on this example, it's basically exactly the same as the Ultra 2, and even for the finer detail of the GPS tracks, it's basically indiscernible. It's just more for those really challenging environments where you may get better results out of the Ultra 2. Honestly, I would use both of these, and both of these I'd be happy with. When it comes to heart rate accuracy, both of these also perform very well. Apple Watches tend to have some of the best heart rate accuracy when it comes to smartwatches. However, the Series 9 may actually get more accurate results with some sports, and the reason for this is weight. So larger and heavier watches tend to move around more on the wrist due to their weight, and this can lead to inaccuracies when it comes to these kinds of sensors. For most activities, they should be similar, but with activities like, let's say, this gravel ride that I have right here, where it was kind of rougher terrain where the watches kind of bounced around a little bit more, the Ultra bounced a bit more, and the Ultra produced less accurate results. Now, I saved this topic for pretty much last because outside of the design differences and stuff like that, this is one area that can also make a meaningful impact. Battery life. So with this Series 9, it has an advertised battery life claim of around 18 hours or so before you have to recharge it. And that's with more typical use, I guess you could say. With my kind of use, I usually get upwards of about a full day before I have to recharge it with the Series 9. With the Ultra 2, it has an advertised battery life of around 36 hours with typical use. For me, I usually get around 2 days. I find that Apple's battery life claims are generally pretty conservative, but results may vary. And this can make a difference when you're talking about having to recharge your watch every day versus every 2 days. And I know it may sound a little bit silly, but hey, it is more convenient not to have to charge your watch as often. But there is something to be said about charging your watch daily. It actually becomes kind of part of a routine. So like for me, I usually take my watches off, like any watches by the way, for a couple hours each morning when I'm working just to give my wrist kind of a break. So that's a great opportunity to charge my watch. And having that routine can be a good thing where it's something that you just know you have to do every day. Where with the Ultra 2, you could be very well like a day and a half into your battery, want to go off a run and discover that you need to charge your watch. But what is nice though in that sort of situation is that both of these do have fast charging. The battery life does also translate to recording outdoor activities as well, where the Ultra 2 with its larger battery will be able to record a longer outdoor activity. So another thing to consider, but with the Series 9, it should still be good enough for folks even for a marathon or longer. So those are the main differences between the Ultra 2 and the Series 9. There may be some other subtle things like how the Ultra 2 has a 3 microphone array versus the 2 on the Series 9, but those are the primary differences between these two watches. So with all that, which one is right for you? And I think it comes down to 3 main factors: durability, battery life, as well as comfort. When it comes to durability, the Ultra 2 is going to be the winner here with its titanium case and sapphire lens, along with a case that protects the edges of the display. So it'll be better if you tend to do a bunch of, let's say, hiking or mountain biking where there's risk of damage. But it's not like the Series 9 is incredibly fragile or anything like that, but it's just a bit more susceptible with its rounded off edges. For more just like everyday use, the Series 9 will be fine though. When it comes to battery life, that also goes to the Ultra, but like I was mentioning earlier, there is something to be said about that more daily routine sort of thing, and that very well can be the case with both of these, of course. It's just that with the Series 9, it may not be as big a deal if you're okay with doing that daily thing every day. If you plan on going out for longer than like a 7-hour long outdoor activity, that's where the Ultra 2 will do better. But when it comes to wearability, I think this can actually kind of be split off into 2 different areas: comfort as well as looks. So when it comes to comfort, I mean, a smaller watch is nicer both for everyday use as well as for sports, and this also can make a difference during sleep. So both of these have sleep tracking, but the Series 9 is simply more comfortable to wear during sleep, especially if you're someone like me who puts their hand underneath their pillow when I'm laying on my side. The display size difference is nice with the Ultra 2 with its larger display, but if you've never used an Ultra, you're not necessarily going to miss anything. The display on the Series 9 is great. You can almost think of it like an iPhone Pro versus a Pro Max. Sure, the larger display is nicer on the Max, but that also means that you have to carry around a larger phone in your pocket. But when it comes to looks, this is all personal preference, of course, but for me, I do tend to prefer the Ultra a little bit more just because it looks a little bit more rugged, and also because it looks a little bit more unique. What's interesting though is that although Apple Watches look like Apple Watches, like the Series 9, so many people now have Ultras where that's also becoming more often seen. So this is kind of where it's a toss-up. So if you're someone who wants a watch that you don't notice as much throughout the day and comfort is a priority, the Series 9 may be the better bet. If your priority is durability and longer battery life, the Ultra 2 may be the better bet, but you do have to deal with a larger and heavier watch. But that actually may be your preference though too. So while the Ultra 2 is more premium and does come with more features, it may not be for everyone. There's other things to consider just than getting the most premium thing. Anyhow, those are just my thoughts on the Series 9 versus the Ultra 2. And if you have anything to add to the conversation, definitely drop a comment down in the comment section down below. And if you found the information in this video useful, do me a favor and hit that like button and also subscribe to the channel for plenty more videos just like this. Thanks so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.